So here we go with part 4 of my video tutorial series on a basic shooter. Okay, so the first step really is making sure that the lasers hit the enemy. The enemy needs to have some way of detecting that the lasers have hit them, and that's where signals come in. We used a signal with the timeout earlier, but the reason we used Area 2D right to begin with all of our enemy sprites and player sprite is because of the signals that this Area 2D type has. If we go and select our enemy and then choose the node over in the inspector there, just fold this out a bit, you'll see that there's actually a whole ton of these signals that are already set up specifically for certain things to happen. For example, area entered that you can see highlighted here. This area entered is emitted when this object receives another area, when another area collides with it, this signal will be emitted. And obviously you can you can connect this up to any piece of code. Because we're going to spawn in lots and lots and lots of enemies, what we really want to do is make the enemy in charge of detecting its own collisions and then destroying itself if it is hit by something. And we'll get started on that right now. So we already have a script on our enemy. Doesn't have a lot in it right now, it just moves the enemy, but we can connect that signal up that I just mentioned. So clicking on the top level enemy, this area entered, because the laser is an area as well, this should trigger. Now it's always a good idea to test it before you go too far and write too much code, so I'm going to double click this area entered to connect it up to something, and I'm just going to see this connecting from, so I'm going to connect it up to the enemy that it's connecting from. And I'll just click connect. It's going to be called on area entered, which is fair enough. So here it comes. It just pops itself in down the bottom here. And all I'm going to do, as always, is just do a print statement and say, I don't know, something like ouch, just so that I can see that this signal is connected correctly and that it works. I'm looking for this little green door as well, because I always look for that to see that something's happened and it has worked and there's no error messages down there. So we'll test this, and I'll just move up and down and I'll shoot a few times, and I'll see that bullets are going through the enemies, different enemies, and we're getting this ouch message appeared down the bottom. So I know that the signal works and that this piece of code is running, and all I need to know is how this actual signal works. So the one thing different to some of the other signals is we have this word area, so we can actually find out what that is. The area itself is actually the other area 2D that went into it. So if I use that variable that's sent to this function, I can say area.name, and I can get the name of the thing that touched this enemy. So I'll just test it again, just because this is a really great debugging tool to be able to work out your own problems. So you'll see that these are all called Area 2D, and they've got different numbers that are coming up. That's because when we spawn in lots and lots and lots of these lasers, an object can't have the same name. So when the system spawns one in, like we did when we did it in code, it just automatically names it with something. So we can't rely, if we want to detect if it's actually a laser that hits the enemy and not the player or something else, we can't actually rely on the name. And so I'm going to show you the cool trick that I learned a little while back to make sure that it is actually a laser that hits this before we worry about destroying it. So if I jump over to laser here, there's a couple of things we could do to solve this problem, but this one I've found is by far the easiest. If we give the laser here a class name of laser, that one line of code, I'm going to save it so that it works. This one line of code works really, really well, because inside, if I go back to my enemy here, inside this this class now, this area should be a laser, but it might not be. It might be anything else, like the player or another enemy. What we can do is we can say that if area is laser, and it seems almost too good to be true that works, but it does, believe it or not. So this if statement says if the area that touches this enemy is a laser. So if it's got this class name of laser, then it'll run this piece of code right here. So what we should see is no change to the last time, but should the player go into one of these, or should one of the other enemies spawn on top? So if I go through you can see that the signal isn't fired at all when the player goes into it. And that's really cool. That makes sure that we're not going to cause any bugs further down the line. So how do we delete the enemy? Well, it's pretty easy. So it's just called queue-free. The queue-free just, you'd think delete or destroy would be good, but queue-free, what it does is it waits till the end of the frame, and then it deletes it. It just makes things nice and neat and tidy. So this is the beginnings of our game. So I can actually hit the enemies here with my lasers, and they'll disappear. And we need to decide on what we're going to do next with this, because we could put the score up, or we could maybe make an explosion, and I think explosions and sound effects would be cooler. All right, let's get started with an explosion. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that when we kill an enemy, we just spawn in an explosion and destroy the enemy. This is pretty simple. We've kind of done similar things to this, but the one thing we're going to learn new is we're going to learn how to make a particle system. So I'm going to click New Scene this time, and I'm just going to make a 2D scene to begin with. I'm going to use this as the top level, and I'm going to put a particle system on as a child of it, because I'm also going to put sounds on too. So we'll call this Explosion, and then we'll add our child node to this of the particle system. And we'll use either one will work, they're pretty similar, but the GPU particle system will work just as good as any, and it should be a little bit more optimized and faster. So I'm going to click Create, and then we'll look into how to get this to work. So we could spend days teaching you how to do these particle systems. So I'm going to quickly do a quick and dirty one, but I just highly recommend the docs for this. So this node right here, if you click on doc over here, you'll get all of the built-in documentation for the particle system, including a pretty good particle systems tutorial and demo here. So I'm not going to cover a lot of this, because you can always go and play around with it. There's a ton to learn, and I'm just going to make a really simple explosion one, and then we'll add that in and try and do it as quickly as possible. So the first thing we need to do is the GPU particle system that I have selected over here. We're going to need to create a process material, so a new particle system process material. There are other settings that you can do in here, like the lifetime and whether it's one shot or not. I'm going to leave this off and put it on later. And things like explosiveness. So this is going to be an explosion, so I'm going to drag that right up to 1. The time is fine. What we do need to set, and we can need to set, is the length of time that the particles are alive. This is just the length of time that the particle system is alive. So if I look on 2D right here and just out a little bit, I notice it's unsaved. So I'm going to Control S and go into prefabs again and just save it in there so that I've got it ready and I don't make that mistake. So let's look at this particle process material right here. And this is where the magic happens. All of these can be changed. All of these settings can be changed. And I'm going to go over some of the key ones as we build this particle system up. So the emission shape of point is pretty good. The reason you can't see anything right now is that there's no texture or material. So I'm going to fix that first. If you just go down to texture right here, so this is right down the bottom, click on texture. I'm going to load up just texture just so I can see something as we work with it. So I'm going to use the load option, and I just looked earlier, so we're going to go into the Kenny Space Shooter, into the PNG folder, and then effects, and there's a really cool, one of these stars would probably be quite cool, so I'm going to choose this one. You can choose either one that you like. I'm just going to click open, and you'll see that what we're getting is the beginnings of this particle system. So some of the other things need to be changed, and this is the fun thing about particle systems, is you can watch it happen over here, and as you make those changes. So right now it's dropping downwards, and that's, I think, due to the gravity. So if I make the gravity kind of like a 0, then it means that it won't be affected at all by gravity. The direction right now, usually it shoots off in one particular direction, but the direction is kind of like nowhere. So I'm going to set those all to 0 and make the spread all the way up to 180. And I need them to kind of shoot out. So I'm looking for something like velocity. So here we go, initial velocity. I'm going to give it a minimum and a maximum. So I'm going to try minimum as 10 and maximum is 100. And hopefully you'll see that the particles shoot out. So they're explosive, so they all appear at the same time. It would be nice if we have a few more. So, I mean, I've got a decent PC, so I'm going to choose quite a bit more. I think I'm going to choose maybe 50. So we get like one big splat of particles that all come out. But I think I would like to have them kind of, I don't know, like change the rotation. They're all kind of the same rotation. So if I look down the list and try and find something, maybe I could do this angular velocity so that when they start moving, they change they spin. So I'll say minimum velocity like something like minus 90 and maximum would be 90. So they go either clockwise or anti-clockwise. That's pretty cool. They're all kind of coming out and moving in different directions. And if I look down on angle, I could probably also give them a random starting angle as well. So between minus 180 and 180, that should give it a random angle as it comes in. It'd be nice to change its color as well. So there's a few things that we can see for color as well. So I've opened up the color and I'm going to try and change the color. So there's a couple of things we can do this. It'd be nice if they changed color over time as well. If they kind of like faded out, would be really cool rather than just disappear randomly. So this color ramp is where we do this. So their original color is here, white, and it's okay to leave that if you wish. This color ramp, we need to do, I clicked on the empty here and just click a new gradient texture. And then we click on this and it'll open up this property so we can change this around. So the only thing I really want to do is the start and end colors. And this is over its lifetime, this gradient. So I click on it again. The way you change this is you can click on the actual points. You can click again to make new points, but I just want the start one and the end one. So I've clicked on the start one and end one. That start one right here, you can see it's going from black to white. And that's because it starts here, and this is the color that it is when it starts. So if I want to have it start at white, I can just click on the big box here and choose the color that I want. So that's the start color. And then I'm just going to click back down here, the end color. I want to click on this box again. And then I'm going to change this to have alpha of 0. Now alpha is the transparency. So if I drag this right down, you'll see that they're fading out over their lifetime. You can stuff around with this as much as you like and change it as much as you like, but you know, like I don't mind this. I think what I might do as well is just going to click over and make another point and click right here to just change that color again. Because what I want it to do is like make it like solid white, and then at the sort of like last third, it's going to fade out. So I'll click on that again and then just drag the alpha right up and then close that by clicking down here. So you'll see that it's all white, and then it changes down to transparent over the last part of it. So I know we could spend hours with this particle system, but I'm fairly happy with that. And I think I'd like to see what it looks like in game before I worry about changing it. So I'm just going to make sure I've saved the explosion prefab in the prefabs folder. And we're just going to go over to the enemy here, and we're going to make sure that we spawn those explosions in straight after we die. So on the script here, we've got this on area entered. We've checked that it's a laser that hit it, and then we're going to instantiate that explosion. So we're going to need to know what that explosion is. So we've done this before. We say @onReady, so that's when the game, when the object's on the scene. We'll say var, and we'll say explosion prefab, and then we'll make it equal to the preload of the explosion. So I just look for it by searching, so explosion, and save. And then, well, actually my window needs to move over a bit so we can see the code a bit easier. And actually don't need the ready, I might get rid of it so the code's easier to read. Here we go. So right here is where we want to instantiate the explosion. So we've done this before. I'm sure you could probably do this on your own. So I just say var explosion, to make a new variable to hold my new explosion, and then I get the explosion prefab and I instantiate it with .instantiate. Then we just say explosion.position, position to be equal to the position of this object before we destroy it. And then we need to make sure that we add it as a child. Now we've done it before where we do get parent, add child. And I don't want to really explain it again, but you know that we can't add it as a child, because if we add it as a child and then we destroy the enemy, the child gets destroyed too. So we'll just do get parent and then add child. Explosion, so that adds it to the tree. If I can spell correctly, it will add it to the tree, just at the same level as the enemy was. We queue free the enemy. The other thing, while I'm here, while I have the code, is I'm just going to say area.queueFree as well. The reason for that is I want to destroy the laser. We know it's a laser because we've checked. Just want to destroy the laser so that it doesn't like wipe out 12 enemies as it continues on. So I have no idea what this is going to look like as I go and play it. So let's try. That's not bad. So we can see that it works, but you can see that we've also got a problem. So the problem is obviously that this particle systems don't die because we didn't tell them to. So let's quickly go change that before we continue. So I've always found this a little bit quirky in Godot, but we go to our explosion. I've clicked on this GPU particle system and then make this a bit bigger so we can see this at the very, very top, emitting on, and then I'll find it eventually. There it is. The one shot should be on. So one shot means it's just going to play once and then it's not going to play again. So that's basically it. We'll try now one more time. So this time we should be able to kill the enemies, and they'll do one particle system, and then that'll be it. So that's pretty good. So I'm feeling a little adventurous, so I'll explain about adding sounds to these things. So the explosion, if we add a child node, if we just type in the audio, and you'll get this audio stream player. Now, an audio stream player 2D is a spatial one, so it depends on how close you are to the listener, and you get audio listeners from the camera. I don't want to bother with that one. I'm just going to use a standard audio stream player, so it's real old school retro. It just plays the audio, and it's real simple. So I'll click create to add this. This audio stream player becomes part of the explosion, and you'll notice that there's an autoplay over here. So it's just basically as soon as it spawns in, so when we spawn in an explosion, it will autoplay the sound that it's been given. The assets that you downloaded have a few sounds. They're not the best, so I don't really know which one to do. I think I kind of want this two-tone one. You can check all the sounds by double-clicking them, and then you can hit play. And when you hit play, it'll play the sound. You could go on a number of different places and get a better explosion sound than this, but I just wanted to show you how. So we'll just click the load and go to Kenny and go to bonus and then choose the two-tone. So I think that two-tone it'll do for now. Then we'll test this. So hopefully you can, the video can show. So when the explosion comes in, so just hit one, you hear the sound gets played, and it'll only play once. It's not set to loop. So we get this sort of like sound comes up in the explosion. And I may regret this also, but I'm going to make this laser play a sound as well. So you're going to do exactly the same thing as before. So when the laser comes in, you want it to play a sound. We could do it as part of the player, or we could do it as part of the laser, and it really doesn't matter. So I think I will. Do it as part of the player, because then when we press the key, it's going to play the laser sound as well as instantiate the laser. And it's just a little bit different. So let's do this. So we've also already got the shoot action. We just want to add the sound to this. So the player, we click add child node, and the audio stream player and create. Now, the good news is that the Kenny assets do have two slightly better lasers. So laser 1's pretty good. So the audio stream player, I'm just going to click on up here and drag it up to the stream for this audio stream player, and then leave autoplay off and don't have it playing. And then we just need to trigger this to happen. So it's pretty easy. This is a good tip that you maybe don't know or not. But when you have a script on an object and you want to find the children or a child object, you can just go down the tree with the $sign. So this is where we create the laser. It's a great place to actually make the sound play as well. So you just do $sign, and then we're looking for the child object, which is called audio stream player. So we just found it with a few key presses, and then we just say .play. And that is it. It's that simple. So now when we hit play, we should be able to hear laser sounds and explosion sounds when we kill each of the enemies. So that's it for this video. Hopefully that's not been too difficult, and the game's starting to look like a full game. It's looking like it's fun, but you'll see we can't lose yet. So we're going to do some score and losing the player collisions in the next video. So stick with it. See you soon.